Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Thursday, December 4th, 2014. That can only mean one thing. Thursday, Steve Wiltfong, knowledge. Steve, welcome to the show.
Good morning. What's up, Daniel?
Not a whole lot, or actually a lot. Wanted to talk a little bit about this weekend. Very interesting developments, obviously, out of such a big recruiting weekend. I want to start with the biggest of the big developments in terms of size. That's Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle of St. Catharines in Ontario. You wrote a story yesterday about him, about his visit, and then subsequently crystal balled him to Oklahoma. For those who didn't see that, kind of take us through why we think now that he'll be headed to Norman.
Well, in the short history of the 24/7 Sports crystal ball, Neville Gallimore is the one that's probably given me the most trouble. But I feel pretty good about where I'm at with it right now. So I always thought Ohio State and Oklahoma were definitely major players. And those are schools, if you go back and read the articles, they've always been mentioned as schools that I've said were at the top of the list. But with my crystal ball, I always try and give what I think is the current pulse. So if I think there's a current leader, even though I think it could change later, I still go with who I perceive to be the top school when talking to the young man and folks around him. And so I've had Florida State, and then I've had Ohio State, and now I'm sitting on Oklahoma. So I thought, he was having, from what I could tell, I thought he was having a great visit at Ohio State, talking to people around him, prospects, parents, and such that were around Neville this weekend. It sounded like he was having a fantastic visit, and I always thought Ohio State was a place that he could see himself at. And so I just, I thought the pulse of the situation was definitely turning towards Ohio State with a decision coming in early January. And so I felt good about Ohio State on Saturday, and then he comes home and the visit has a chance to marinate or whatever. And I catch up with his head coach on Wednesday about the visit, and it was a good visit, and Gallamore had a good time being around the commits. I think he enjoys the current recruiting class that Ohio State has, but I got the sense that Oklahoma was the team to beat, talking to his coach and then, gathering some more intel. After that, I thought that Oklahoma, and they've been consistently in there the whole way. And if you read the articles, it said that Jerry Montgomery, Neville Gallimore's recruiter, has recruited him the hardest throughout the process. And so I had to make the change, and I certainly didn't want to make the change because I just picked Ohio State on Saturday. So I realize that looks, I realize what that looks like, but I just want to be right and try and give the best and most accurate information and that I know. And again, we're dealing, as we talked about off air, these are young men that are, I'm not saying Neville in particular, but these are just young men that are seeing some glitz and glamour of college football, and it can be real impressionable on you. So these guys' minds change all the time. I'm not saying Neville's has changed. I'm trying to get a read of where he's at, and right now I think he's sitting on Oklahoma.
No doubt, and I was the one who said it actually in the conversation prior to we went on the air. This is something, I've been doing this a while. At some point in time, we're held, hostage isn't the word, but you're dealing with the whimsies of 16, 17, 18-year-old guys. So things can change at the drop of a hat for reasons you wouldn't believe. When I do get out of this business, I'll probably put together some anecdotal story or anecdotal book, and I'll put all my good stuff in there that won't burn any bridges until then when I'm living on a beach somewhere.
I'll write the forward, Daniel. But the thing is,
you co-author it, and we'll go to Key West.
I'm with it. But at 24/7 Sports, we've at least put it out there. Of who, where we
it's
think.
Fun. Yeah.
Right. And so,
no question.
So yeah. So
one thing I want to talk about is the recruits. It does really seem, and this is just maybe my impression of it, that this group of Ohio State recruits, the Justin Hilliard, the Jashon Cornell, the Matt Burrow, they really do seem like a tight unit. I don't know if that's because with Twitter in these days we can kind of follow their communication more and that exaggerates it, but one of the guys besides Neville Gallimore and all the pictures from the weekend was Lawrence Cager, the wide receiver out of Towson Catholic. What are you hearing about Cager and how the weekend visit might have helped him and where he stands with the Buckeyes as of today?
Well, I still think Ohio State's the team to beat for Lawrence Cager. He's going to take his official visit to Notre Dame, not this weekend, but next weekend, and that'll be his final trip, I believe. And it's really Alabama, Notre Dame, or Ohio State. And we've talked about it several times, but at Alabama, the opportunity to come in, maybe redshirt that first year or play a little bit, and then he feels he's one breakout year away from being able to head to the NFL out of Alabama with that stage and being in the SEC. That's the way Lawrence views it, on top of Lane Kiffin being a really strong recruiter in Lawrence's recruitment, and then obviously what Alabama just brings to the table as a whole, that opportunity to have one breakout year down there in the SEC can catapult you into the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft is something that Lawrence is strongly considering with Ohio State. I mean,
I wonder who told him that.
Well, I mean, it's true though, right? I mean, if you go, I mean, it's not just Alabama. I mean, but I mean, look at you go into the SEC and you're one of the best players in the SEC. If you have a huge year, you're going to go. So and
no doubt. But Ryan Shazier was picked pretty high.
No question. Hey, no question. I'm not saying. Hey, you get drafted high out of Central Michigan, so you can't trick the NFL. I'm just giving you I'm just telling you what I've heard from the Cager camp. So
I agree. To me, when I hear that, that's to me, Cager, ventriloquizing from, that's not even a word, by the way, from Lane Kiffin. No, it's cool. I get that. And listen, if you're being wooed by Ohio State and Alabama at age 16 or 17, I have to imagine that's pretty overwhelming.
Sure. And Ohio State, he views, again, I think Ohio State's the team to beat. I think that even though they were his leader in July, he loves it there, really likes the staff. Coach Zach Smith and him have a great rapport, and they've been connecting for a long time, and I don't think there's a recruiting class that he's closer with, so he's comfortable with those guys, and he sees an opportunity to play early at the X position and be a big receiver and give the Ohio State offense a dynamic that maybe they don't have among the younger group of kids that'll be on the roster. So that excites him. And then Notre Dame, that'll be an interesting visit. Lawrence comes from a high academic family. His dad's a Carnegie Mellon grad. I think that they'll have a good visit to Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame comes into it having to make up ground on the Buckeyes, and I don't think Lawrence really knows, outside of Ashton White, a DB from Lawrence's neck of the woods. I'm not sure who he really knows or is bonded with on that Notre Dame in that Notre Dame recruiting class. So I think they got some ground to make up. But so right now I'm feeling good about Ohio State, and then just this class as a whole. Why they're so tight? They've had a chance to be around each other a lot. I mean, between Matt Burrell's been to games. They were all at the opening together. Jayshon Cornell's been to Ohio State several times. Many of these guys were at Friday Night Lights. So they just had several opportunities to just be around each other and click and hang out. So it's just really worked out. And you're looking at the number 5 class in the country right now with some guys still on the board. So anytime you got, and when I say Urban Meyer, man, I wanted to talk about this. So when people say, oh, Urban Meyer, he's such a great recruiter, and he is, but I always kind of mean it as the enterprise, the Urban Meyer enterprise, because everyone that he has working for him as a recruiter, those guys are damn good recruiters. So, I mean, Urban Meyer, he's the guy at the top of the food chain, so people always mention him first. But when you say Urban Meyer going to finish top 5 class, it's just the enterprise. Those assistants are working their tails off. The off-field staff led by Mark Pantoni, those guys are really working hard. So it's the Urban Meyer enterprise. That's how I look at it on the recruiting trail.
No doubt. Okay, I have a theory for you. I want to get your opinion on it. The name of the hour in the state of Ohio, and the hour of the season for that matter, is Joe Burrow, the quarterback out of Athens, Ohio, who will lead his team into the state championship this weekend. 57-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's committed to the Buckeyes. There hasn't been a lot of national buzz on Joe, and there really never was any. I think part of it is because he plays at such a small school in Ohio, and people maybe from afar think, oh, it's just some farm kid from a small town, not realizing that the only reason he lives in Athens is because his dad's a football coach at OU. And the stuff he's done in the playoffs is literally bordering on legendary. To do what he did to DeSales and to beat Akron St. Vincent St. Mary, what are you hearing about Burrow in terms of how his rating may change going forward with what he's done?
Well, he's definitely a guy that Barton Simmons is keeping an eye on, we continue to talk about him, and there's no question he's having a great senior year, and he's fantastic, and his recruitment and just how he's just kind of developed over the last this is a young man that just continues to get better. I think that going into his junior year, he camped at Ohio State, and I think he was I think at that point he was a mid-major guy, a guy that was considered a mid-major quarterback, and then, things just developed where Ohio State saw him get better and better, and he continued to climb up their board, and not only did he climb their board, he passed up guys that are ranked in the top 100 like Travis Waller. So Ohio State could have gone after other guys and maybe more high-profile guys, but Joe Burrow was their guy, him and Torrance Gibson. I think those are the two names that are at the top of the board for the Buckeyes. Brandon Wimbush was another guy that they liked a lot. But Joe Burrow is a guy that has continued to get better as a player, and so it'll be exciting to see what his future holds at Ohio State. He is just one of the more improved players in the country.
No better way to end it than that, Steve. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thursdays with us Wilfong going strong.
Appreciate you guys.